You're listening to the Bulls Don't Lie podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Bulls Don't Lie and check out bullsdon'tlie.com for more. What is up, everybody? Welcome back into Bulls Don't Lie, the only Bulls podcast where we certified 100% of the time never lie. Don't fact check us on that, please. I am here today with my guests. I have Ken and Wrigley at Wrigley Court at Ken_K and then 4 underscores. What is going on, guys? Thank you for joining me.
Happy to be here.
Thank you, guys. I'm Ross at Arturis Fan Club. You guys know me. We're going to get started here. We have some stuff to get into. This week with the Bulls, people have been talking about Rudy Gobert. We all know him from the disappointing playoff exits that the Jazz seem to be so comfortable with. The Jazz, of course, are looking for a new head coach right now. They are trying to appease Donovan Mitchell. They don't want him to leave, and Rudy Gobert appears to be on the trading block. Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report and Kevin O'Connor of The Ringer have both independently from one another linked Rudy Gobert directly to the Chicago Bulls. We know that Nikola Vucevic was having some problems in the playoffs and at the end of last season. Let's get into it, guys. Would you want to trade for Rudy Gobert? And in that trade, would you give up Patrick Williams? Ken, I'll start with you.
See, that's kind of the sticking point. I am someone who is incredibly high on Patrick Williams pretty much ever since he's been drafted. And I just, especially after this season, I think we'd be selling pretty low on him. We really haven't seen who he's going to be or what he's going to become. And that's partially due to the aforementioned injury, but also partially because in Billy Donovan's offense, since there isn't enough floor spacing, he's kind of relegated to sitting in the corner and waiting for those kick out passes, which they don't often come since Levine and DeMar always score first. So I'm not sure about including Williams in a trade for Gobert, and that's no disrespect to Gobert because he is the 3-time depoy. I think he's a generational rim protector as well. Like, he's incredible, and it's incredible what he's done to carry the Jazz defense year after year. But I think Patrick Williams would be the sticking point for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I kind of put that out on Twitter the other day about, if AK could keep Pat and still get Rudy Gobert, like that would be, the heist of the century. Wrigley, what about you? Would you give up Pat to get Rudy Gobert?
I would not give up Pat. I think he's kind of our one shot at getting a high level two-way player on this team. I mean, Zach, DeMar, Vooch, they're all good offensively. Well, not Vooch, but
lately.
But if P. Will reaches his upside, he can be a cornerstone of this team, and I don't think you can give that up for Rudy Gobert. Even though I do really like Gobert for this team.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it seems like we're all kind of on the same page on that. And I should mention, Ken has a great article up now on bullsdon'tlie.com breaking down exactly how Rudy Gobert would fit within Billy Donovan's system, breaking down the numbers on the court. But there was also part of that I wanted to pull out, which was this trade. And I think, Ken, you had gotten this from a different article, right? Nikola.
So the trade I took was, I believe, proposed by Jake Fisher from Bleacher Report.
Okay, yeah, it was Vooch, Pat, the 18th pick in this year's draft, obviously, to the Jazz, and then we just get Gobert back. So we all just kind of went into how we don't really want to trade Pat to get Rudy Gobert. I'm of the same opinion. I really like what Rudy Gobert could bring. Defensively, obviously, I mean, we're talking literally like you said, the depoy, Ken, like he is the defensive player of the year. He is up there in the discussions every year, even when he's not winning it. So we're talking about a guy who would instantly turn the Bulls into a defensive powerhouse. Of course you want to get him, but it's at the cost of this really talented young player that, you spent a lot. You spent the 4th overall pick on, that's not something to turn your nose up at. They've invested a lot in Patrick Williams. So it's a tough one for me. I think one of the reasons that people get a little hesitant about the idea of acquiring Gobert, let's say for a second, maybe you can keep Pat. Maybe AK does pull off the heist of the century and you can keep Patrick Williams. I think people are scared that Gobert is going to I don't know, cause issues to spacing, clog up the paint is a term I see thrown around a lot. I personally don't really agree with that. And Ken, once again, going through the article that you wrote, the numbers and some of the analysis kind of fits what the eye test says, which is that Rudy Gobert is a really good screener, and the dude is huge. You can toss him lobs at the rim. I mean, tell me what you think his fit would be offensively.
So yeah, in the article, I did break down about how he is a incredible screener. I know the Jazz fandom likes to throw out the word screen assist a lot, and it's actually a real thing with him. He can create separation through screens, and when you have a guard like LaVine, who's like a first step quick guy, that is incredibly important. And I would say that Vooch took some steps in improving his screening this year, but it's still not on a level of Gobert, and that could be a potential new way to open up the offense. Something else I mentioned is that he's an excellent roller as well. I mean, he's just a big dude. I believe I called him a vacuum around the rim. And it's just stuff like that. It's like, it makes you turn your head, but then you also have to take into account that he's not a floor spacer. And on this team, we saw what the Bucks did against us in the playoffs, that they really just focused on shrinking the floor. And Gobert doesn't really alleviate that problem. And there's also the problem of what Ellis did against him, where they just switched, and how he really is still struggling to beat the switch. And he's, I believe, 30 years old. Could be potentially on the decline here in a couple of years, and this problem may be never figured out. So there's various pros and cons with Gobert on the offensive side of the ball, but the cons do weigh quite a bit when you factor in some of the Bulls' troubles offensively.
Yeah, those are all great points. I think speaking specifically to his issue with switching, we are trying to build a team around point of attack defense, and hopefully not have to switch as much, which was kind of the goal, I think, of bringing in guys like Alex Caruso, Ayo Dosunmu. So, I mean, you would hope that in that system, maybe he would thrive a little more. I don't know. Let's go back to offense for a second, though. Wrigley, when talking about Rudy Gobert, are you scared of the idea maybe that, he could kind of shrink in the playoffs and shut down our offense if he's, cold and disappears like he kind of did for the Jazz this year?
See, I'm not that scared of that with Gobert, because that's kind of what we got with Vooch these playoffs. I mean, the whole season he shot 31% from three. Teams weren't guarding him on the perimeter. He wasn't giving us the spacing that he's supposed to be giving us. I think bringing in Gobert could actually help our offensive flow a bit, because Billy Donovan just insisted on running our offense through Vooch so much, and that wouldn't happen with Gobert.
Yeah. I mean, so that's another thing you bring up with just running the offense through a player. A lot of sets start with Nikola Vucevic, whether it's, him as the pick and roll roller, whether it's him as, just in the post with the ball in his hands and movement around him. Nikola Vucevic was a big part of Billy Donovan's offense last season. With Gobert setting up screens for guys like LaVine, guys like DeRozan, guys like Lonzo Ball, dynamic scorers who can also pass. I do think that the spacing would happen naturally, right? If you're going to be able to create that much separation from your defender. But, to Ken, to your point earlier, you just don't know in the playoffs when teams really clamp down like the Bucks did on the Bulls. Can he stand up? He's 30 years old. I mean, at this point in his career, he has not taken that leap in the playoffs that you would hope for, a perennial defensive player of the year candidate like him. So there are definitely concerns. I see both sides of it. I think if the Bulls were able to swing a trade for Rudy Gobert, one that I would like to see is maybe include Coby White, potentially. I know that Coby's value around the league right now is kind of low. But there's another report coming out this week from Darnell Mayberry of The Athletic, basically saying that Coby White at some point in the near future will probably be traded. He said that he'll be on the trading block into the offseason and up into the trade deadline next year. So the Bulls are really kind of looking for some value to get back from Coby White. I don't know if he'll be involved in a Rudy Gobert trade. I don't know if that's even realistic. But just let's bring it back to the core. Wrigley, I'll kick this off with you. Do you think Coby White can still be a good NBA player?
I think he can help a team win games if he plays at the level he played more toward the beginning or the middle of this season as opposed to toward the end. He can still be a solid bench scorer. He doesn't offer much outside of scoring, and that's mostly with his shooting. So when his shooting's off, he's not doing much, and that's what we saw toward the end of this season. But if he can get his shot right, get more consistent, he can offer a team some nice offense off the bench.
Yeah, those are really good points. Ken, what about you? I mean, Coby White obviously has defensive struggles. We know that he's not a good on-ball defender. I think he's a little underrated as an off-ball defender, but overall, the whole package isn't pretty. What do you think? What's his ceiling? Where do you see his career going?
That's a good question. So what I saw from Coby this year, once he returned from his shoulder injury, I was actually very impressed. I thought he made legitimate strides as a passer, and I think that's very important for his growth as a player. He could be he could fit in that Lou Williams, Jamal Crawford role of being a scorer, but not so much of a passer. But expanding that passing game really ups your value, and knowing when and how to make those certain passes, whether it's after you bend a defense, drive and kick, or whether he's on the perimeter, is a really important tool for him going forward as a player and for his future in getting paid. Defensively, yeah, on ball, it's really not that good, but it's also his frame and size. Like, he was never projected to be a good NBA defender, probably average at best. So I try not to hold those unrealistic expectations of him.
Yeah.
But I think he's made legitimate strides. Even if his shot is a bit inconsistent, he's still a very young player. I think he's still worth keeping around and just having that salary spot on your team, and just continuing to see how he grows, because I think as he continues to grow and learn more in the NBA and under Billy Donovan, his value is going to improve. And right now, I think we'd be selling a bit low on him.
Yeah. So that's a great point right there at the end. Like the idea of selling low, because right now, he's kind of seen as a negative around the league. I would say Bulls fans maybe have, I don't know, overdone it a little bit, and maybe we need to rein it back in a little bit with Coby.
Yes. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Ross, but yes, there's a lot of Coby White hate, and when he's made legitimate improvements this year. Right,
exactly. Ken, thank you. I appreciate you basically stating what a lot of Bulls fans have kind of felt a little afraid to say, because the Coby White hate is so strong online right now. But I mean, it was his best season in the league, his third, so not many, but his best so far. He was attacking closeouts really well. He was decisive with the ball. He was making great reads, and he was getting his teammates in good positions to score, all of things he was not doing his first 2 years in the league. So there are a ton of things to feel positively about. I know that people feel really frustrated because he had that really long cold stretch to finish the season, and then in the playoffs just kind of wasn't there. I get it. I totally get it. But you got to think big picture. Still a young player. Still plenty of potential in this league. The whole Lou Williams scorer off the bench kind of thing. I just, Ken, you said it best when you said passing is way more valuable. So if the Bulls were going to keep Coby around, I hope it wouldn't be just because, all he does is shoot some threes off the bench. I would hope we're keeping him around because, he is making strides as a passer, maybe getting a little bit better as a defender, maybe. I don't know, but I know we just talked about Coby staying on the Bulls. If he were to go to a different team, if Coby were to be traded, is there a team that you could think of that maybe would be a good fit? Or is there a return that you think would be fair to get back for him? And, you could be talking further down the line up to the trade deadline. Maybe we play a little bit of the season. He gains a little bit more value. What do you think the Bulls would be looking for in return for Coby White? Wrigley, I'll start with you. If the Bulls were going to pursue a trade, what could they get back?
Well, you kind of brought it up, and you said that right now his value is really low, and that maybe we can raise it before the trade deadline. And I think that's a perfect idea. I think we keep him around this offseason because his value, we're not getting much back for Coby White right now. But if we keep him in the season and he plays well, suddenly his value is raised by the trade deadline when teams are more desperate to add pieces, since they can't just go out and grab a free agent. And also, if he doesn't improve, and we still want to trade him at the deadline, it's not like his value's gone down that much because he can't go much further down from rock bottom.
That is true. Ken, here's a trade. I saw this on Twitter. It was Coby White and a second for Rajon Rondo and Osman from the Cavs. I just want to see your face.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So Wrigley,
no.
Yeah, Wrigley, you said it best. Like, probably want to wait to up his trade value a little bit. But Ken, what do you think would be a fair return for Coby White, maybe playing at his best that we've seen him so far?
As of right, so you did touch upon that point where he did end the season kind of cold and the playoffs were kind of cold, and recency bias is a thing, and I would say especially in front offices sometimes. So, like we were saying, his value isn't high, so I'm not sure if we get anything of incredible value in return. Maybe a place I could maybe see him going to, and I'm not saying he's been linked here or anything, but should like maybe Detroit strike out on Jalen Brunson or Colin Sexton? So maybe Detroit has some interest in Coby White's restricted free agency. Hey, young guard with potential, even though he's kind of a negative on defense, the passing is there and he's still young. He could be a good player in this league, Yeah. Let's put him with Cade Cunningham. So maybe somewhere like Detroit where he can kind of continue to be a scoring guard and improve his passing game. But I just don't think right now is the time to trade Coby. I think we should continue to hold on to him and continue to let his value rise. And who knows, maybe he becomes a really good player. Maybe he proves us all wrong, and all the Bulls fans on Twitter who love to hate on him. Maybe he proves us wrong. You never know in the NBA. You never know,
and you would love to see it. There was a point where I think last season, I felt a little bit vindicated in like February, December, that range where like he was playing really well. There was like a 2-week stretch where he was kind of our best player, and we kind of needed him. Now, I know that that's not sustainable and that's just a very small sample size, but still, Coby White, not as dramatically bad as some people have made him out to be. A little bit scapegoated. Let the guy have a breather. Give the guy an off season. Let's see how he looks when we come back. Everybody looked pretty bad at the end of last season. Let's be real. All right, let's move on. We got the draft coming up here in a couple weeks. It feels like way too soon, right? Like, where the hell did the time go? It's already draft season. It's crazy. But we got to talk about it because the Bulls have the 18th pick, and there's a lot of, I don't want to say smoke, because once again, with AK and Mark Eversley, whenever these quotes come out, whenever these reports come out, you never know who it's actually coming from. You never know. Honestly, it sounds like the Bulls don't release anything. They don't really leak anything. So if you hear something, probably from another team, always got to take that with a grain of salt. But there is some smoke around the Bulls potentially trading the 18th overall pick. I think maybe next week we'll get into some prospects, and we can start talking about, who the Bulls should take if they don't trade that pick. But we already talked about Rudy Gobert. We already talked about some trades. Let's talk about some more trades. If the Bulls were to trade the 18th pick, where are they going with it? Even if it's not Rudy Gobert, are you going to try to make a run for like DeAndre Ayton? Is that even realistic? Would you trade up? Ken, what do you think? What would you do with that 18th pick? Or would you stay put?
So I'm kind of at a crossroads because I can understand the concept of staying put and trusting in Karnisovis's draft history. Like you look at Ayo DeSumo last year, 2nd round pick, and he turned out to be a good rotation player for us and is going to be a player in this league for a long time. I say if you can get someone like Ayton, I think you swing for that. I'm still high on Ayton, even though the playoffs were a bit disappointing. But that could be a bit of a long shot, especially with other teams maybe competing and maybe even overpaying for Ayton.
Yeah.
In terms of trade equity. I would say you maybe try and get realistically a 3-and-D player, more so on the 3 side, less so on the defensive side. Because like we saw, shooting was a big problem for us in the playoffs and in the regular season too. We were, I believe, near last in the league for 3 points attempt shot. And to run the style of offense that Billy Donovan wants to run, you need floor spacing. And we really only have two great floor spacers, Lonzo, catch and shoot, but we don't even know when he's going to be back or if he's going to be back by the start of next season.
Right.
Then we also have Levine, who pull up, corner, catch and shoot, no matter what. He's a top 10 shooter in this league.
Yeah.
So I would say maybe try and get another shooter, and I think that could help open up the offense quite a bit.
Okay, yeah. I mean, with the 18th pick, there are some guys that hopefully will still be on the board that could fit some of those needs. Well, like I said, we'll get into that next week so we can devote a full episode to it. But Wrigley, what about you, man? Would you stay put with that pick? Would you, look to maybe swing it for an upgrade at center? Or, to what Ken said, would you maybe look for a rotational piece who could give you something that you were lacking last season?
I think maybe adding a backup big with that pick, like a really solid backup big with that pick, could be a really good move, because that's probably what we should be looking for in the draft, if not a 3-and-D guy. And the thing with bigs, especially bigs drafted later, they can take a while to develop. So we need help now. So why not add, say, a nice, solid backup center that can play some defense, get some rebounds, something that we obviously lacked last season.
Oh, you're saying you don't want to re-sign Tristan Thompson?
Never.
Okay.
I'm not dealing with that again.
Yeah. We've talked about Tristan on some videos, some pods in the past. Bulls definitely need to look for some help off the bench at center. Bulls need to look for a lot of things this offseason. It is going to be an interesting ride. I think AK and Mark Eversley have a tough road ahead of them. Certainly not impossible to navigate, but it will be fun to see what they end up doing. I think we can wrap it up there, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. Once again, I want to shout out Wrigley at Wrigley Court, Ken at Ken_K, and then 4 underscores. Make sure to check out his article that is up now on bullsdon'tlie.com, breaking down everything about Rudy Gobert to the Bulls, his fit, the trade that we talked about earlier, everything that would go into it, and all of your concerns hopefully will be addressed by that article. Boys, thank you so much for joining me. Anything you guys want to share before we get out of here? No?
I'm good. I appreciate you having me on, Ross.
Yeah, of course, man. I really do appreciate it, guys. Thank you for watching and listening. Make sure to check us out on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you listen to your podcasts, wherever you watch your videos. We are there. We are Bulls Don't Lie, and we will catch you guys soon.